All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Time to look at the movies and talk about screenwriting for this week. I think we're going to have a fun time today. So thank you for all joining me today. We're going to talk about the normal stuff we do for Real Talk. We're going to talk about the box office. We're going to talk about some pop culture stuff, the Acolyte. There's been a lot of stuff going on with the Acolyte. A lot of articles coming out saying that the fans just suck. And we need to get over it. And we need to realize how powerful the Acolyte is. So we're going to talk about that today. Let's see. And then we're going to basically dive in the box office, look at the upcoming movies. There's not very much coming up for next week. So we're going to take a look at that as well, too. Also, some AI filmmaking stuff. I found some interesting AI videos with different folks. And again, there'll be timestamps in here so you can watch all those things. There's some funny AI stuff. They're like, this is great AI filmmaking. I'm like, okay, I sort of get it, but sort of like you can begin to see the power. And we'll also talk about a little bit about this week because I've had some pushback from folks again about sort of AI in terms of screenwriting and just terms of filmmaking and total of everything. So let's dive into it. Let's get started for today and let's get going with those box office numbers. So let's take a look here and we will pull those up. All right, let's see. Despicable Me. I believe I put it on this one. So let's take a look. All right, let's see. There we go. All right, so as we take a look at our box office numbers for this week, we'll look at the top 10. The Fall Guy has unceremoniously fallen out of the top 10. Let's see if it'll let me show you the right stuff here. Let me see if I can get you to the right thing here. I was noticing it wasn't sharing the right stuff with you here. So let me share with you with that. Here we go. Okay. So one thing to note, if you are using StreamYard, you need to make sure, and you have everything sort of like in a couple of different windows, you need to go through and select the actual window you want before you pull it up. So with that being said, we take a look at the top 10. Again, I said the Fall Guy has fallen out. Fall Guys made about $92 million, which is not a great amount, but, you know. So Despicable Me. So last week we talked about Despicable Me. Would it be able to take the throne from inside out? Would it be able to do as well, if not better, than its previous stuff? We'll talk about that article here in just a second. But as you can see over this now, the other thing you have to note about this too is we had the 4th of July weekend, 4th of July week, sort of / weekend in the United States, which is about 5 to 7 days worth of film being able to watch because 4th of July fell on a Thursday, so there was more time to watch movies and stuff like that. So if you're wondering why the gross totals are a little bit more bigger than normal, because we had a holiday weekend, or I should say the total gross is a little bit bigger because we had a holiday sort of week / weekend. Despicable Me, $75 million. Good job. And guess who's at number 2? Inside Out 2. It only had a 47% decrease from last week. It's got some really good staying power. It's already made $500 million in the United States. And that's not even talking about worldwide. Again, Inside Out 2 is the number 1 movie in terms of being made around the world. I mean, it's grossed some great numbers right now. That's the first $1 billion movie of the year. It's basically put Pixar back on the map. And you know, the other thing, at least for family films right now, the interesting thing is you're not going to get another sort of animated film till September. This is it for summer. Who was the moron who thought that was going to be good? That you don't have like any more animated movies for July and August. I mean, that's again high time when kids are out of school. Why aren't there more animated movies? So as we're thinking of it from a screenwriting perspective, this is a great opening, you know, so it doesn't look like animated movies. Granted, they cost a lot more. Probably with the advent of AI, not so much, because you're going to be able to do animated movies a little bit, actually probably a lot cheaper than before. And so I think it's important right now to take a look at these things and say, okay, so from a screenwriting perspective, we could probably pull out that maybe making more animated movies, making more family-friendly movies, because we're seeing, again, family-friendly movies, they're sort of reigning the supreme at the top of the box office. It's not like a lot of these horror movies are doing really well, because they're not. Quiet Place lost about 68%. I think the total gross, if I remember looking at it, overall, I think it's sort of hasn't. I don't know if it's gonna. It's had a better opening weekend, but I don't know if it has the same staying power as the other Quiet Places. Maxine came in with, which is an A24 movie, so you know it's probably a horror movie, which it is. Coming in with a $6 million, it's not bad. Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is going to be out on video, or I should say on digital pretty soon, is 177 million. Again, they started off the summer pretty well. It's got a good staying power about 5 weeks into the summer season. Made a good amount of money. We look at, what's his face? Why can't I think of his name? It's always fun, when you're doing this, you're like, okay, what's his? Kevin Costner. There we go. Holy cow, I can't believe I forgot that. So Kevin Costner's didn't do too bad. Only lasts about 50%, which is on average for Horizon. We're going to talk a little bit in the news section about why Kevin Costner would put up so much of his money and what does it mean in terms of the gross and stuff like that. Each of those films cost him about $100 million in total gross right now. He's only made 22 back. So the thing with this particular movie is I think Kevin Costner is hoping that this is going to be really good for airlines. So this is one thing I just found out this week was one of the things. So like when you have movies that show on airlines and stuff like that, they have to pay a residual to the actors and to the people who wrote it and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting. So I think he's banking, especially for those long haul flights. Horizon is going to be really good for that because people are going to be invested for a 3-hour movie. It takes a lot of time as you're flying, especially if you're flying to long destinations and stuff like that. The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. Angel Studios just has not found that next big hit. Again, it doesn't come out to a bad amount of money. It took a total gross of $6 million, $3 million over the weekend. Kalki. Now, this is the one I've been really interested to see how it's going to do. Lost 66.5%, but still really doing relatively good. One of the most expensive movies made in India, and it has total gross here in at least over the weekend of $7.5 million over that long abbreviated weekend. So it's actually been doing fairly well. I don't think it's done as high as some of the other stuff, but it beat the other. I think it was a Hindi movie that came out this week. Kalki's still got a lot of legs on it. Still in the top 10. Still did better than the Bike Riders and Kinds of Kindness, and even better than The Fall Guy. Thelma's still hanging around in the top 12, especially for an indie film. Those were pretty cool. I thought that was pretty good. So looking in terms of the box office numbers, I think so as we look at sort of trends and stuff like that, again, the interesting thing is you saw typically more of those animated movies, more family-friendly movies are doing really well at the box office. So you might be asking, well, why? It's summer. You have time with your family. You want to go see a family movie. You want to see movies that are, so that is fun for the whole family. Now, Minions is more geared for kids. So why is Inside Out doing so well? It's simply because more adults can empathize with the story. They can get involved with the story. And so that's something to think about as you're writing, is create a story that is good for the whole family, and you're going to see good positive dividends. And we're seeing that with Inside Out too. People are thinking this is a big surprise, and it's really not that big of a surprise when we think about it, because again, it's summertime, family movies, there should be, there's not a lot of options. And so what options are there? People go, and especially it's not, they just want their kids entertained. They want to be entertained as well too. And so that's why it is, there's doing so well. Well, let's take a look at some of the news from this week. Take a look at some of the news behind the headlines. Give me 1 second here. So we're going to talk a little bit about Inside Despicable Me 4 a little bit more, touching on. There we go. All right, so as we look through Despicable Me 4, so it expands to about $230 million globally. Inside Out, again, talking about $1.217 billion. Now the biggest movie of all time in Mexico. Interesting. So I think the other thing, too, that we need to keep understanding, too, is it used to be that the United States was just basically the big powerhouse of where all these Hollywood movies, they would make all the money from. Now we're actually seeing a lot, especially coming from overseas in terms of market and how much they contribute to a film's bottom line. And so, again, we weren't surprised that Despicable Me 4 is going to have a lot of money overseas because it's more designed for a Eurocentric type of viewing audience and stuff like that, because it's made in France. It's got a French production company or animation company. And so it shouldn't surprise us that it should have a strong overseas component to it. So the international to date from is $107 million, with key coming from France. Again, it's a France production company or France animation company, Germany, China, UK, Japan, Korea, and it's Italy. And so it's doing really well. It's it's making a lot of good money for them. And let's see here, what was the other part I wanted to talk about? So again, you can sort of see the different markets that where different films are making money and stuff like that. In terms of, like, I think this was Inside Out 2's article right now talking about, but you can, I think they're still talking about Despicable Me 4. So, but again, if we look at Inside Out 2, that more than of that $1.2 billion, $683 million of that is coming from international box office. And so that's the reason. So it's not the United States numbers that are bringing it over the $1 billion. It's really the international. And so again, it's hitting those things that people really want to see. It's hitting stuff that, stuff that people really want to see. I mean, people that are yearning for these family type of movies, especially for adults. And I know I keep repeating myself about that, but I think that's the thing. We're not creating stories and films that are about families and that are intelligent enough for adults to watch and for kids to enjoy at the same time. And when you have one of these, everybody's thinking it's some big unicorn. No, it's really hitting those things that are important to both demographics. And if you look at the demographics of who's seeing Inside Out, it's young, old, all of those different demographics. Now, if you look at the Minions movie, it's skewing more towards young folks. Well, yeah, it's a cartoon, but again, it's not glomming on to that idea of how do you make it more family friendly so you entertain the adults as well as the kids. Some other interesting things is about Inside Out is now the number 5 animated film of all time globally. Yeah. So internationally, it is in the top 10 animated releases ever, overtaking The Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Toy Story 3 during this frame. So it's gone against some really big stuff. And so I think it's important that we understand that and we understand the reason behind that. So, all right, give me a second here and we'll get to the next article here. I want to get back to Kalki real quick because, like I said, I think that's just really important to highlight, because there's more than just Hollywood. There's other types of cinema available and stuff like that. And so let's talk a little bit about Kalki, because it's, like I said, it's really one of India's biggest film ventures to date, and so but it's doing so well, and so it did better than Kill, a Hindu action film that debuted this weekend as well too. And so it's making it has as a box office in the United States of about 16 million. It's one of the highest grossing Indian films in North America as well for over a year, according to data provided by ComScore. Hugely popular RRR. I've watched that. It's a really good film, as well as Animal last year. Both ended their runs with a $15 million domestic. So you see, even though, RRR, which I thought was a really great movie from India, this is actually doing better. But you see, it's still got some room to grow. It's about $4 million behind the conclusion, which took about $20 million in 2017. So I think those are important things to realize is, again, it's that sort of worldwide cinema, that global cinema. And I think that's important that we keep talking about those things. So that way you realize how important it is to look at other movies, see what other things are working well. And so this is really working well. You're also seeing, different audiences. Movies are made for different demographics. I think so often we think that movies are just one size fit all. And when you see what works and what doesn't work, I think it's important that you figure that into your writing as well too, or because I think it helps you, reminds you, who are you writing for your movie? Who are you writing for your book? Who are you writing for in general? And it's understanding these patterns. It's understanding who your audience is. That's going to make your screenplay more successful. All right. Well, I talked about, let's take a look at Kevin Costner real quick, because I thought that was an interesting news article. We're going to talk about why did he rich so much of his own money. Now Costner has a propensity to do this as well too. He actually did this. So the interesting thing, and I forgot this, was that Kevin Costner was up for the role of Jack Ryan in The Hunt for Red October. And he could have made a heck of a lot of money from it, but instead he decided to direct and star in Dances with Wolves. So Costner, who put up $3 million of his own money to finish the film, was expected to take home $50 million back-end payout and earned a ranking alongside Tom Cruise as one of the most powerful men in Hollywood because he decided to take this gamble, to take this risk. So this is something that's been in Kevin Costner's blood. And he also did this with The Postman, which didn't turn out as well. And so he ended up saying he mortgaged 10 acres on the water in Santa Barbara where I was going to build his last house, which is where he came up with the money for this. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why is Costner still going ahead with this? So in the end, it's going to cost him like $400 million to do this. He's made $22 million back. So you're probably wondering, was this one of the stupidest ideas that you've ever heard of? The problem is there's what he's banking on. Again, we talked about this a little earlier, is sort of the residuals of later on. So being put on cable TV, being put on airline flights for long haul flights so people can watch it there, for Blu-ray and that type of stuff, for streaming, for HBO, for Netflix, for that type of stuff. So that's where he's hoping to actually build his money back, and he can theoretically do that by going that particular route. So even though right now it feels like folly, we talked about why you shouldn't really write a movie for why you shouldn't write a movie, right? Why you shouldn't write a TV show and make it into a movie, or make it a movie when it should really just be a web series or something like that. So that's the reason why. So let's see here. There was a powerful quote where he talked about. So this is where I thought this article from Vanity Fair really shone. So mostly, though, he had to answer many iterations of the question, why? Why would Costner make this leap of faith, knowing the longevity of this commitment, the stress and complications it would involve, and the possible financial loss? Perhaps one of the few people on the planet who could possibly understand is Francis Ford Coppola, who, like Costner, unveiled his own expensive passion project at Cannes' Megalopolis, which I haven't got to see yet, which I'm really interested to see. But Costner said this: when you go into the great unknown, you don't want to say, oh, I wish I had done this or that. You want to say, I got to do it. The filmmaker told Deadline during a moderated conversation with Costner. The Horizon filmmaker agreed. That's how I feel about it. And so I think that's something that I think is good in any sort of sense, because I think so often we don't do things because we have fear of failure. And Costner is like, well, at the end of the day, and he's getting up there in age, like we all are. Every day we get a little older, we're closer to death. I know that's a cheery feeling to have. But we are, and he asks us a very important question. I think it's a question we should ask ourselves: are we doing everything we need to do to get to where we need to be at? When you think about writing your own screenplay, have you stopped and have you said, well, I don't think I can do that, or I'll put it off till tomorrow, and tomorrow was 4 months ago and you haven't started it again? And so I think what we can learn from Kevin Costner and what he's doing right now is to say, let's go ahead and do this. Let's try it. If it fails, it fails. But when I get to the end of my life, I'm not going to say, well, I really wish I could have written this movie, or I really wish I could have done this, or really wish I could have done that. Having worked in hospice myself, I've seen a lot of people have regrets in life. I wish I would have done this. I wish I had spent more time with family and stuff like that. And so I agree with Kevin Costner in that if we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's not put it off. Let's quit saying, let's do it tomorrow. So I implore you as a writer or anybody else who's watching this particular video, what are you putting off right now? What can you get back to? Don't worry about failure. You're going to fail, yes, but what can you learn from that and how can you move forward? Because the only way we get to where we need to be at is through failure, but pushing ahead and not stopping because we're afraid. And I know this is a good reminder to myself because there's a lot of stuff I keep putting off and I need to do. And so it's a good, and that's one reason I started this channel. It's because I kept thinking, maybe I'll do something, maybe I won't, but even doing this sort of podcast from week to week is a reminder of doing stuff that's hard and saying, hey, I got to run a podcast. I got to talk to people about movies. One of my favorite things I get to do, which is why I enjoy doing this. So what is coming up? Upcoming movies. Woohoo. So what is coming up? Let's see here. Get rid of this one. All right. So the two movies that are coming out for this particular week, we sort of get a lull. So if you're thinking that Inside Out 2 is going to suddenly drop out of the top 10, you'd be sadly mistaken because there's not really that much coming out. And again, I think the thing that Despicable Me as well, I think you're going to see a harder drop in Despicable Me numbers than you are going to see for Inside Out 2. Let me know in the comment section below if you think that I'm wrong about that. But I think Inside Out 2, just again, it hits so many different audiences so well. And I think that's what people are going to want to go see and stuff. So this week for movies coming out, we have Fly Me to the Moon, a rom-com with Scarlett Johansson and Tatum. Now, if you fake this mission, everything that we have sacrificed will be for nothing. So Apple TV and Sony Pictures have revealed a second trailer to Fly Me to the Moon, a romantic comedy for writer and filmmaker Greg Berlanti, also of Love and Simon. Is opening in theaters in July, getting a proper release before streaming on Apple TV. So again, if that's the hard thing about going to the theaters, because a lot of times it might be cheaper depending on how much your theater charges. I know for me, it actually is cheaper to go to the theater than it is actually to pay for streaming, believe it or not. So they star in a 1960s ad shark and by the book launch director on a mission set against the high stakes backdrop of NASA's historical moon landing. Marketing maven Kelly Jones wreaks havoc on launch director Colin Davis' already difficult task when the White House deems the mission too important to fail. Jones is directed to stage a fake moon landing in an alternate case they need it. And so this will be so it's a romantic sort of comedy. I don't know how the market's going to do with this right now, because is there a lot of so if we look at it from one perspective, is there a lot of other romantic comedies out right now? No. It's a good date night movie. Will it get to see his numbers like Despicable Me or Inside Out 2? No, I'm going to probably say it's probably going to have a $10 to $15 million launch. I think the hard part about this type of movie is just where it's landing at in the summer. The nice thing is there's not a lot of other big movies coming out with it right now, especially like if you want a date movie. This is probably something that you can take your date to. Though, do you want to wait till Apple TV is ready to go with it and just simply get it on there? So it's hard to say. But I'm thinking about 10 to 15 million. Is this something I want to watch? Not really. But would like so we'll have to see what becomes of it. But that's what I'm thinking, about 10 to $15 million, and we'll see what that ends up being. Let's see, the other movie that I wanted to talk about is, oops, did I drop it? I think I dropped it. The other one is Long Legs. Let's see if I can get that back up here. All right. So Longlegs is, if I can just pull up the wiki right now. There we go. So Longlegs is an American horror thriller filmed and directed by Osgood Perkins. It does have Nicolas Cage in it, so I think it sounds like it's gonna be pretty interesting. There's been a lot of good press for this right now. It's basically the premise is in 1990s, a new FBI agent, Lee Harkin, was assigned to an unsolved case involving a satanic serial killer known as Longlegs. As the investigation becomes more complicated with occult evidence uncovered, Harker realizes a personal link to the killer and must act quickly to prevent another family murder. So I think this is gonna, again, it's hard to say, because if you look at if you notice the last couple of weeks, there's been, like, with Maxine coming out, you had The Exorcist. This is the next. It's not really a horror movie, though it says it's one of the scariest movies right now. It's sort of been compared to Silence of the Lamb. But to be honest, when we're comparing movies, everything's always compared to Silence of the Lambs. So we'll have to see how this does. If it's a real good story, if it's a real good film, I could definitely see this doing about $15 to $20 million. If it doesn't, so the other thing too, is it going to be, if it's got really good staying power, I can definitely see maybe it starts off, maybe $5-7 million because people haven't heard about it, but then the buzz comes around and people start liking it and wanting to go see it. I'm hoping to go see this one because I'm really interested in this particular movie and seeing what it's like. So hopefully I can find somewhere near me that will have that. So we'll take a look and see. But like I said, what do you think? Any of those two movies get you excited about what's going to be happening in the theaters, or are you going to see Despicable Me? Or I know my kids want me to go see Inside Out 2 yet. I haven't seen it yet. For whatever reason, I do not want to see it. I don't know. Maybe I have too much anxiety about seeing anxiety. I know that's what my daughter told me about that, how much she liked Inside 2. So I think she's seen it twice now. She really identifies with the anxiety piece. And I wonder if that's why it's been doing so well. It's because it's a film that helps people sort of talk about anxiety and dealing with anxiety and stuff like that. So, all right. Now the fun stuff. Let's see here. So, it's our time to talk about everybody's favorite subject, the Acolyte, which I think is interesting. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining today. Good to see you. Thank you for coming along for the ride today. I hope you're having a great day. If you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below. Just know I've been switching off in between different views, so if I don't get to your comment right away, I will get to it. So thanks again for joining along. You're in for some fun now. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite show, or not everybody's favorite show. Talk about the Acolyte for a couple minutes. I found an interesting article on the dork side of the force. And basically where the Camille talks about fans complain about the Acolyte, just don't understand the show. And I've seen this actually a couple different episodes or a couple different articles this week. Talking about how we need to just sort of lay off Leslie Headland and talk about why this show is really good. And my problem with it is that the author talks about the entitled and the flawed. Now onto the Jedi Order. Among friends of mine who say who are Jedi fans for life, the major complaint is the show depicting the Jedi as flawed and is entitled. To say this, I say no duh. Have you not seen the prequels? I have seen the prequels, but I think my biggest problem with the Acolyte and this stuff. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind comments. If there's any videos that you want, Matthew, let me know. I'll be happy to do my best to include them in my sort of lineup for the week. So if there's something, or if there's something that you're looking forward to, let me know and I'll get it going. That's one of the things I do is last week someone was talking about screenwriting books, and so I made a video for them about screenwriting books. So if there's something in particular you're really looking forward to, let me know. I'll do my best to see what I can do for you. looking at my big problem with the Acolyte is basically the writing. I don't mind that the Jedi are sort of seen as flawed. I think that my problem with this particular show is it's just people are just not written well. I mean, there's flawed and then there's dumb. The Jedi to me are acting. I don't feel like they're acting out of a sense of arrogance. They're acting out of a sense of stupidity. They're doing things that don't make sense to me. I think that's where I'm having the hardest time with this show. They say this exploration of the Jedi flaws is a critique. It's an opportunity for growth and introspection. It's about time that we see our heroes as multi-dimensional beings capable of making mistakes and learning from them. Well, that would all be fine and dandy, but I just don't see that sort of happening within this film or this series. I just don't see the Jedi as being portrayed as people who are saying that overall that they're going to figure out a problem, they're going to see what's wrong, and that type of stuff. So, so that's my major problem with the Acolyte is it's just the poor writing. The characters aren't very well fleshed out. Osha and May, they don't, like I said, the characters don't act with any type of integrity. I mean, Osha is flip-flop between good and bad. And in this last episode, in episode 6, spoiler alert, she is off with the Sith guy, and the Sith guy is trying to turn her and make her into his his acolyte, his follower, and stuff like that. And the same with May, in that in some sense she wants to be turned into the Jedi because she wants to repent for what she's done, but yet now she's going to try to kill Sol. I mean, so there's a lot of back and forth between. There's sort of like, it feels like a tennis match. They act one way one episode, they don't act the way the second time. And it also, I think Sol is understanding something different about what's happening, but we as an audience aren't clued into that. It seems very disjointed. It seems like, especially with 8 episodes, there's a lot more filler than there needs to be. Like episode 6, a lot of the people who thought there's not a lot of people who like episode 6. Episode 5 was good because it sort of moved stuff along, but episode 6, you sort of felt like you weren't moving anywhere. Characters weren't progressing or anything like that. So that's so I disagree with Camilla on basically the point that if you can't get past your Jedi being shown as not perfect, don't ruin things for those of us who are waiting for a story like this. And I would say I'm happy to see the Jedi not be shown to be perfect. I just want them to be believable. There's a difference between not being perfect and not being believable. And where Leslie Headland and the rest of the writers, and I've done a video showing that those writers are young writers. They're not used to writing a $180 million show. They don't have the experience behind that. And you're seeing that in their lack of how they're characterizing people. So again, show me, like I said, show me the Jedi actually having personalities, having character arcs and that type of stuff. And then I won't complain about it. Like I said, I'd be ecstatic to see Jedi not being perfect and being flawed. So there you go. I don't know. I think people just don't like it that people have valid criticisms towards the show. And so what do you do? Okay. Let's see. The other thing I want to talk about was the other HBO story, or the other HBO House of the Dragon. So the reason why the House of the Dragon works so well is because it has good characters. It has good character arcs. Is it complicated? Yeah, it's not easy to get into it. I just started watching a little bit of it and stuff like that. It's hard to get into it. And so, but I think the important thing is it's complicated. It's hard to, the storylines are complex and the characters are complex. And I think that's why people enjoy it, is because it's interesting to see what's going to happen next. The story is driven forward. I think that is the biggest thing. If you want to make a critique between the House of the Dragon and the Acolyte, things happen in the House of the Dragon. Each episode is packed with things that move you towards that next goal. As opposed to the Acolyte, you might get one point that gets you to the next piece. So, so is there any other pulp culture people want me to take a look at? Let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, the Acolyte, we'll have to see what the train wreck that they end up doing for episode 7, which we're assuming is going to be some sort of flashback, telling us a little bit more about Soul. Hopefully it'll move the story forward. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more idea of who the dark Jedi is. I know it just, yeah, they're just, I think you have a story here. I think, honestly, I'm actually thinking of rewriting the Acolyte once it's done and writing it so using the same characters and same plot points, but making it a lot more interesting. Because I think if you made it interesting and you made it so that people cared about the characters, I think you wouldn't get these complaints that you're having. So let's see. What is next? So next on the docket is Survey Says. So some AI filmmaking stuff for this week. There's a channel I follow called Curious Refuge, and I wanted to show you a couple of the videos from there. So they have some AI films and stuff like that. So I wanted to show you just a glimmer of what some of those look like. I think a lot of people are always so worried about AI that they sort of forget how new it is. They think it's all really, everything's just going to take over and we're all doomed to die. I disagree with that. AI is a good tool, but again, you need to understand that AI is still far away from being able to have good, coherent stories and even visuals. So let's take a look
of the week. The first film that I'm
just going to turn his particular volume down. But so this is a Barbarians, and you can sort of see the different water effects. Some of them make really good sense. Some of them don't look at that. But take a look when you watch when they start rowing their oars and stuff. And like I said, you can look. He's rowing into the boat. Again, suddenly, oh, there it is. Comes out of the boat. For these static type shots, AI does a really good job of doing that. But even look at this. How is he rowing? So there's a lot of clipping still in AI filmmaking. There's a lot of we have a long way to go in terms of that, and that's why I always think it's important that we realize AI is going to be a tool, and we need to know how to use a tool. And very much the sense is the same as screenwriting software. Screenwriting software came around, we all had to learn how to use it. And so, so it takes some time to learn how to use it and stuff like that. So don't panic about AI filmmaking. Like I said, I'll bring you up to dates. Most of the stuff is the interesting stuff. Most of the stuff that I'm seeing right now is based more on the filming technique and how to create images. And I think from some sense, it's nice for us screenwriters because then we can show everybody, hey, this is what my art looks like and stuff like that. So I think AI filmmaking, the nice thing is you can sort of make it sort of like a demo reel, sort of give people a proof of concept. I think that's the wonderful thing about where the AI is at right now. You can do about 10 seconds worth of footage right now. And so I don't see that taking over the marketplace anytime soon. Let's see, as opposed to screenwriting software updates. So this particular time, let's see. So I had someone reach out for me from Pre-Write. They want me to take a look at their software. I'm going to take a look at that. So Pre-Write is a software that I sort of like from the perspective that so if you ever use Final Draft Fade In before, you notice there's no sort of navigator. There's nothing that helps you sort of lay out your story. They have note cards and stuff like that, but nothing that sort of helps you visualize sort of how your story is sort of laid out. I like Pre-Work from that perspective. I do not like their price. Their price is really expensive. It's $14 per month, which I think is a lot. It does offer a free editor with it, but do you want to buy a Final Draft basically every year? And plus you don't get all the functionalities of Final Draft. So we're going to take a look at it a little bit more. I think I'm going to do a video. I've just asked them if they want me to do a review video for them, or if they just wanted me just to give you my honest. I always give you my honest thoughts, but just they wanted me to give me my feedback before I made a video about it. Storyworks. I've talked to Oliver a little bit more. They're making they're trying to get a free editor out there, very much in the same vein as Kitsonaris. They're going to try to make it as better than Kitsonaris, more along the lines of Final Draft. Like I said, I teased last week, they have some other interesting things that they're adding to the app that no one else has done so far. And there's one part I told them I want credit for it if it comes out with to share it, and I'll have to wait until he brings the app out again. But I'm hopefully going to show that here pretty soon. And finally, this week for channel updates. Let's see. So right now I'm still working on my my Final Draft Made Easy software. I can actually just show you my screen. I have let's see. Do I just have my Chrome? This is show me. I'll show you my. No, I can't show you my screen. I'll have to figure out how to do that later on. But yeah. So just sort of letting you know that I've been working on the program. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll start offering an introductory offer. I'm going to slash it so you get to save 75%. So it costs like maybe $25 to $50 yet. I haven't figured that out. But it's a way to use Final Draft, so you get to use all the bells and whistles, so you know how to use the beat board and stuff like that. And I know you can look all this stuff up on YouTube, but it's a curated class. We walk you through it step by step. And plus, you can always ask me questions too. I'm always happy to answer questions for people. Now, the PC stuff, the hard part with the PC with Final Draft is it doesn't always. They need to fix a lot of their errors. And there's a lot of stuff that we can't fix, but there's some ways that we can get around it. So yeah, we're going to talk about that this week. Trying to think if there's anything else that you guys would like. Let me know in the comment section below. I think I was going to just sort of figure out. I'm still working on my screenplays. I'm going to do Script Studio. I'm going to start doing a screenwriting class every week, showing you how to use each of the different programs. So I'm going to start with Script Studio. Not a paid stream. I don't get paid for any of this stuff, but simply just show you how to use it because I like their character development template that they have on their program. So I'm going to show you how to create a new character with the template. And you can walk along. And if you want to create a template with me, great. Or you can just see how it goes. You can see why it's helpful. So I think other than that, thank you very much for coming along for the ride for today. We covered a bunch of stuff. So where do you guys think box office wise next week? Despicable Me, Inside Out 4. Where do you think Longlegs is going to end up being? I'm interested to seeing where that comes at. And so, like I said, the one thing I wanted to talk about before I left, because I had one more screen I wanted to talk about, is screenwriting. I forgot to add, we're adding a new category, screenwriting tips. So I thought, hey, since we talk a lot about screenwriting, let's talk about screenwriting tips. And so I found a nice article from Script. Script is a magazine that's used by screenwriters. So you can look at this. I don't buy it, but I tend to look at it every week. So is manipulation a good word for screenwriters? If writers are not keeping an eye on how to manipulate your audience, then what the heck are we doing? I know what you're thinking. Manipulation is never a good word unless you're unless you're a physical therapist. So how could it possibly be helpful to screenwriters? Great question. The answer is manipulation is not only a good word in the writing game. I would argue it's an essential word. And if you're not thinking about it, then chances are you're writing a boring script. So let's all agree as writers, if you want to be paid to create, we have to have a certain expectation and obligation to entertain strangers, right? So given that assumption, a key factor in delivering entertainment to people, not named mom, is to give them an experience, an emotional ride, a good story well told, and all that stuff, which means by definition, we are expected to manipulate our audience's emotional state. We are tasked with making them feel stuff, no matter the genre, horror, comedy, drama, action, you name it. They all have an audience demanding to have their emotions messed with by the writer. So what do you guys think about that? I think that's a very interesting way to look at it. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why the Acolyte is not doing so well, is because it's not really manipulating our emotions. We are not invested in the characters. And so I was thinking about this last night, because right now, one of the things I also recommend for folks, especially as you're thinking about screenwriting, is read read a lot of different books. And right now I'm reading Penny Dreadfuls, which are stories that were in the early or late 1800s, early 1900s. And you get really invested in these short stories. There's just short stories, and they're horror stories, but you get invested in the characters. We had a story last night that talked about these two people who are ghost hunters. And they were very cocky people, and you knew something was going to happen to them, but you really wasn't sure what was happening. But the way that the author wrote the story, you became invested even with these two cocky people. And then when they got to see what happens to them, you, at the end of it, it really was sort of like a little gut punch. And I was like, that's what we need to do as screenwriters. We need to make sure that when you have these characters, even though I only was with these characters 15 pages, I felt an emotional payback when something happened to one of them. Yeah. So that's our screenwriting tip this week. How do you manipulate your audience? And manipulation is not a bad way. How do you get people to, how do you get them to start feeling different emotions by watching these characters? You know, one of the ones that I did recently was a video talking about dying in Lord of the Rings. Talking about theme, how that was a theme in the Lord of the Rings. And you have many grown men who are crying when Boromir died. How did that happen? Because Tolkien made them invested in the character. When that character died, they were like, wow, this really meant something to me. So how do we do that with our own writing? How do we make people invested in our writing as much as that you help them laugh, you give them a smile, you give them a chuckle, you make them tear up. So on that note, you guys have a great week. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope you have a wonderful time. And if you have anything you want to leave in the comment section, please do that. I love all you guys coming by. I appreciate it. I do it for you guys each and every week. I really love talking about story and screenwriting and films and stuff like that, and screenwriting software. My goal out of this is for you to create that script that we all get to watch. I think that was just so awesome, just to empower filmmakers to be that next Tarantino, to be that next whatever great director, Spielberg, whatever you want to do. So thanks again. Take care. Have a great week. Talk to you next week.